Yeah, it's funny. I gave one to Diane. I gave one of the cards to Diane. So
Good evening. This is the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, December 13th, 2016. Our agenda for the evening is a presentation by Chief Wazinski on the ALS paramedic proposal. And then we're going to be spending some time on hopefully a brief 2017 budget update, sort of where we are to date. And then a discussion on the 2018 budget planning progress to date, and just a quick walkthrough of the proposed schedule for our January 7th, 2017 budget hearing. And then public input, and seeing no public, I assume there'll be no input. Member updates and minutes. We have minutes for October 18th and November 16th to opine on, and then the ever-popular motion to adjourn. So, no further ado, we'll invite Chief Wazinski up, and he can give us his update.
Thanks. So we'll glance over the handouts real quick. Going by the small packet first. That is just a brief comparison right now at one of the issues that we're dealing with going forward as the previous time that I met, as we talked about ALS and the ALS service that we are currently utilizing through professional ambulance. They have, I guess, it appears that they're part-time at their Acton base, but since Acton has gave notice to Samara, basically the district that we all belong to, Acton is going to be going paramedic in July 1st. So Pro has not renewed their lease in Acton. Apparently they say they are still staying on site. However, it's increasingly shown that their responses are from Lincoln on a regular basis, which is their other base. It's almost like they're running down one of the trucks. So what we're actually last week, I think it was last Thursday night, we had two incidences. Once was a response from the Lincoln Weston line, and the other one was from Lincoln Center. Both of those responses were canceled because we were already on Route 2, and they hadn't even passed the rotary yet. And it's just, unfortunately, it's not a great service for the residents of town. However, on the same note, it's not worth it for us to stop when we're a half mile away from the hospital and wait another 10 minutes for a patient to get analyzed, and then we all get charged those fees. This is just basically a response time comparison. Every one of these lines is attached to an incident, a specific incident, so that we can prove that they're not made up. The average response time for this time period was 10 minutes. In the last month, the average response time is now 12 minutes. So we have noticed an increase in lag time, and with our longest time in the last month of a 24-minute response.
They're not getting from Lincoln in 12 minutes.
No, especially at rush hour. So it's a constant frustration.
So before you talked about that sometimes you're using the other towns that have gone to ALS, how does that work with this deal with these guys, and how does like Westford or somebody get called? How does that work?
So Westford and Air, they're both the medic services in the surrounding towns, and we pay them a flat fee when we use them. They have agreed to give us a backup, be our backup ALS unit, company. They didn't want to do our primary because of the run volume that they already handle within their own communities.
Right.
So, but they agreed to do a backup. So it's a flat rate fee, unlike Pro, which takes a percentage. They have to hit a pretty significant percentage of the revenue that comes in for the year before it starts to increase and come back to the community. So, but as far as Westford and Air, they get that flat rate, and if nobody's available, then we call them. Or say we're going to Neshoba Hospital we'll call Air, or if we're going to like Lowell General, we'll call Westford and meet them en route. And
You call them rather than Pro?
Correct.
That's what I'm asking.
Correct.
Okay, so rather than calling Pro, you call them? If, depending where you're going?
Pro has always started, they're the primary.
Right.
So they may be en route, and if they sign on from Lincoln, or they sign on from Crosby's Corner or Concord Center, and we know within a couple minutes of arriving on scene that we're going to Lowell or Neshoba, we'll just cancel them right away and start Air or Westford and meet up with them, because it's a time savings, and we can meet them en route.
Yeah, okay.
Especially
I
if
just
it's
wondered how that
something
worked, so I was just trying to figure that out.
Yep.
So how do you transfer a patient from one vehicle to the other?
We don't.
Yeah.
Their paramedics hop on board with us.
Okay.
And
Got it.
2 ambulances go to the hospital. Right.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, once they hop on board with us, they're committed to us with their service.
So they bring all their equipment on board?
The medications
Yeah.
and, yeah, right, heart, cardiac monitors, things like that, if they need them, depending on the incident, correct. When you look at the next page, on the trends, it shows in the yellow our total run volume, and then in the blue and the red is the fire calls, and the blue is the medical. And as you can see, over the last several years, it's a constant increase right now. We'll probably hit 1,800 calls in the next couple days. So we're over that, and every year, it's roughly going up 100 calls a year, give or take, in the last 4 years.
What proportion of any of these calls in any particular year come out of places like Life Care and?
A good portion come out of Life Care.
Yeah.
They're a regular customer.
I would think so.
But there's nothing, I would say there's no one place in town that really, that we can say, hey, yep, this is, like the Point. The Point caused all these runs for us this year. In general, it's pretty steady. It's pretty level across the community. I mean, one thing that did increase it a little bit was Shattuck Street, the home on 19 Shattuck Street. So we do have an increased run volume at that facility.
I see daily people up there.
Yep. And a couple things one of the significant things that we do see changing for us is Emerson Hospital is going to have an urgent care facility and a birthing center that is going in at the Point.
Birthing center too?
So,
Really? Wow.
We spoke with Westford, and they increased roughly just under 100 runs a year by adding their urgent care facility. So having that facility alone here, we definitely anticipate an increase in run volume just with that facility alone, because, like most healthcare physicians require you to go to your local urgent care or whatnot, and then when they can't handle it, we do the transfer to the hospital. So that's something that we're looking at down the line.
Those babies gonna be named Scott now, huh?
Yikes. But it's
Birthing center at the
it'll be
Point.
interesting.
That's not confused, does it?
Ice skating, groceries, ice skating, and giving birth.
And then when you're done, you can go celebrate with a drink.
There you go, huh?
Stay in the hotel.
Maybe that's right.
One-stop shop up there. Anyway.
Okay.
So in the next page is actually, that's our current budget that you guys will see on Budget Saturday. I wanted to include that just to kind of compare numbers. You can kind of skip over that one for right now, and we'll just go to the last page, which has all the capital costs. The capital costs for us to go into the paramedic program, which would include, basically, as we were saying before, we're looking to hire 6 paramedics. So that would be to outfit the gear for those medics, equipment for both ambulances, initial uniform costs, software upgrades, EMD for dispatch. However, the EMD would actually be paid out of the E911 fund. That grant money would pay for that. And academy mileage. So those are the one-time costs that would affect it.
And these you would expect to expend during the 2018 fiscal year?
That's correct.
So that's the next cycle. So
That would be in
if we
the-
did this program, it has to be in that cycle.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And-
This would all take place before the service was implemented.
And this is all predicated on the grant.
This is without the grant.
That is without.
So now we can move on to the big pages.
Well, the grant won't cover any capital, will it?
Correct.
So this is on our dime,
That-
on the
right.
capital side.
So on these two pages, you have the one with the single yellow line at the bottom and one with the double yellow line, the highlighted area. The one with the single,
Those that we can see, Steve.
large print, this benefits us all.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
On the page with the single yellow bar at the bottom, we can look at that, and you can go down the FY18 column, and this is the page without the grant, okay? So basically, both pages would be the same. Going down the FY18 column, you would see the areas comparable increases would be in the salary line. You would see a decrease in, or the elimination of the on-call officer line, because as going forward, as we add the medics, the other thing that we would be doing is promoting for lieutenants. So there would be a lieutenant on every shift. That way, there's accountability and responsibility for each group, and that would take away the pressure of having an on-call officer, because now we'd have the officer on duty for every shift. Basically around the clock. So there's just a few adjustments. And then in the bottom, or in the expense side, there would be some one-time increases for FY18, being in the travel for the academy, the training, training and education would go up across the board because there are many mandates that are required on a yearly basis for the paramedic program. And then some of the other services actually increased to about 60,000, because with the paramedic program, we also have a private QA/QI company, quality insurance and review. We would hire a private company to do that. That's what all of the surrounding towns that have gone to the medic service do. It's an independent company that reviews all of your procedures, your reports, and they come in and they deal with each of the medics on an individual basis. To improve and make sure that you're doing things appropriately and you're meeting the standards that are required by the state.
Do you get certified or something from doing that, or are you just paying them for a service? Is that more of like a training, education thing?
Yes, so you're paying them for the service.
Yeah.
That's just a portion of that fee.
Right.
They would also supply our training.
Okay.
So everything goes from the level that we're at now to a level
Right.
that's up here. All of the basic EMTs would still require a certain level of training. However, the paramedics need that step up. It's more hours, it's,
Yeah.
the different qualifications because of the medications and the different, abilities that they have over the basic EMT.
So I guess my question is, does the state require you to do this?
Yes.
Okay, and then, so it's just required, they come in, they do this, it's not like then you have to pass some certification?
So.
I'm just trying to,
So we have certification. You have a certain number of hours that you need to be trained on.
Right.
It's a 2-year certification. So you have.
and is it
continuing
person by
education.
person, or is it your department?
Person by person.
Okay,
Continuing education credits.
Yeah,
Every person
yeah.
needs the.
okay, so they're a certified
44
EMT,
hours.
so or not even an EMT, a certified paramedic.
EMTs and paramedics.
Okay, got it.
We're all EMTs, it's just
Right.
paramedic is a higher level
Right.
of certification.
Right.
And you have continuing education credits that are required in these 2 years.
Right.
To recertify as
Yep,
as a paramedic or an EMT.
Yep.
And that's required. You have to have those hours. If you don't make it, then
Right.
you won't make your certification.
Now, as I understand it, this independent third-party quality assurance group also performs audits, and they hold you accountable, and since they do the audit and they're third party, they're impartial.
Exactly. That's exactly the best part, because if it's
This
somebody.
is what I'm trying to get.
If it's somebody in-house that's doing it, you know, people don't, you know, they don't tend to take it as serious. When it's that third party that's coming in and doing it, I mean, this is also reported to our medical director, which would be, you know, at Emerson Hospital, and so everything is reported to them. If we're not meeting the standards, they're not going to continue to allow us to provide the service. So, you know, it's our goal to provide a top-notch service, and that's the best way to do it, is with a private QA/QI firm. So that's one piece that's
So
in
you do
there.
some of this now, it's going up because you're going to have more people, and then it just continues at that level because of that.
That's correct,
Okay.
right. The other thing that we would have in there, it also that comes out of that line, is still the billing for like Westford and Air, because they would be our backup. But the advantage to that is now we would be their backup as well. And we would have a similar agreement, hopefully, with Acton once, you know, our services are together. So, you know, and looking at the big picture, we would now have our basic mutual aid agreements with all of our surrounding towns that offer the same service.
So I noticed that under salaries for overtime, call-out, training, that doesn't go up, that doesn't increase at all through the fiscal, why is that?
So, similar to when we added the 5 members when we went around the clock, we had a swing person. So we were able to slide that swing person into the slot to have an overtime savings. So we would do the same with this. When the first person was out during the day, the deputy and myself are there, and we would fill that vacancy. So we would actually have the ability to run down a person during the day. It would be our goal to run full every night. So we would always have 4 on shift at night, but not necessarily during the day. So there is kind of that ability to have a cost savings, and that's where we're going to able, you know, we would be able to have that.
So you and I had a conversation the other day regarding call-outs and their lack of showing up when called out. Do you anticipate that this would actually decrease? Or do you spend what you have budgeted for call-outs?
So the call-out line actually gets filled, that line is actually spent by the per diems, that are working on the weekends. So bottom line to that is, no, we're spending less and less every year on the call salaries. So in the big picture, we'll be able to put a little bit more of that into this. Because unfortunately, members aren't showing up, especially, you know, during the week. During the day, they all have full-time jobs. So they're not available. Times have changed a lot over the last 10 to 15 years. And increasingly, even at nights, it can run the gamut. Tonight, we might get 5 or 6 people. Tomorrow night, we might not get anybody. Or same thing, you know, up to midnight, we typically do have a few that will come in, and then after midnight, we'll have a back-to-back medical, and it's a struggle to get. You'll have the on-call officer, because that's his responsibility. However, you might not get that second EMT, and we might have to rely on mutual aid. Or you might only get those 2 people, and you wouldn't get anybody else. And that goes the same with fire calls. At night, you have the 2 guys that are in the station, they'll respond, and then you have the deputy and myself that back them up, and typically the on-call officer, but you might not get anybody else.
Well, I think that's what, when we had the conversation on Sunday, you and the deputy had been out till 2 in the morning.
Well, we had the answer to that too, right?
Because you had it back-to-back and there was none of the call-outs showed up.
Right.
Now, we're getting off topic, but, you know.
No,
But it's.
you can only do that for so long. I mean, these guys need some
Yeah.
quality of life too. I mean, let's be honest, right? Yep.
So, yeah, there will be some, going forward, there will be some adjustments in those lines, you know.
This is probably more of a bonding question. I assume we just use a standard chart of accounts here, because, I mean, the idea that we've got this big hunk, $60,000, and it's in other, basically. It would be nice to see that broken out a little bit more and see what that is, but I assume we're constrained by a common chart of accounts here or something?
Well,
Which one are you looking at?
so
Other services.
Yeah, it's the state chart of accounts.
And there's another one called fire supplies, but at least that says fire supplies, but other is usually not, you know, it gets big, you usually want to break that down further, right?
we had it broken
Doesn't
down.
exist.
Okay.
We had it broken down into 3, and we said, okay, wait a minute, we don't have, this is account specific.
Yeah.
So we put them all into that account, because we didn't have accounts for the others right now. And that, it's all just different forms of billing, and that's what we've been taking the billing out of for the last several years with Pro. So it's still the same form.
But it's not, you said this other services includes all this training and certification, which I was kind of curious why there wasn't in training, why it was here instead, but,
Which the training, you can see that went up, so a portion of that comes out of it, but like the QA, QI portion, that comes out of.
all right.
that
And like I said, it's
section,
not the most
so, yep.
important thing, it's just, it just kind of looks kind of funny, you have these separate line items for $200 and $800, and then
Well, I'm gonna-
60,000 is
We're
long.
coming forth with a request for system conversion under my own budget. So part of that, I need to do a charge conversion. And there are some options, like there are some other lines that are close to that would be more specific. So it would just expand their chart, we
Right.
could do that as part of this.
Okay,
So I'll be asking.
all right.
And back on the salaries line, you're going up about 360 grand. Most of that is a paramedic.
That's correct.
And are the paramedics in there for 12 months?
On this
this
budget,
page.
yes, they are.
Okay.
They are. They're figured in there for the year. However, in the first year, if we receive the grant, then we have 120 days from the date of the receipt of the grant to hire them. If we don't have the grant, it would be our goal to have them on roughly in January. And their beginning time would be to go right to the fire academy, if they weren't already a firefighter, because we're looking to hire medics. So I'd hire the medics and send them to the fire academy in January. That way it would be done, and then July 1, we would start our service. So, yes, we're looking to fund it for the year, but we won't be sending them for the full, having them on staff for the full year, unless we get the grant. And then they would obviously be on earlier. But we did just we planned it all out for the full fiscal year.
So this grant, I guess, there's a number of different communities applying for the grant.
The whole country, yes.
So, and the grant is announced at the same time?
So it's not a,
What I'm trying to figure out
it's
is...
roughly a 5-month announcement that they announce. Every week, they announce 2 or 3 towns, 2 or 3 more. So it's a long...
Rolling admissions.
So I'm thinking about availability of trained personnel. And, I guess if you are at the tail end of that, the universe of that talent has been depleted quite a bit. Do you anticipate any problems hiring people?
It may be a challenge, but I'm going to stay positive and say no, because this is a countrywide grant, so we're not saying that all of our surrounding towns are getting a piece of this money, because that's not how it works.
Okay.
There, out of the state of Massachusetts, there might be 5 or 6 towns out of the 300 and some odd towns that are going to get staffing grants. And, most of them, Boston, Worcester, Springfield, Lowell, Lawrence, those are the big ones that typically get it to retain personnel. And then, so some of the smaller towns may get some, be lucky enough to get some of that money.
When Lowell, or not Lowell, when Westford and Air went ALS, was it predicated on a grant?
No. They did not use grant money for that.
Did they apply?
And neither was Acton.
Did they apply?
I am not sure. Acton did not, and they're moving forward. They've just been hiring medics through attrition, and so their last.
Have the selectmen authorized you to go after the grant?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
have we?
It comes out in February. So as soon as it's announced, we'll be on that wagon.
Good. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm just learning thing again. So you saying the paramedics all have to be trained to be firemen as well?
Yes.
So they have to be
Yes.
able to go out on a fire call as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, one of the benefits to this, to having a 4-on shift, is you meet the safety standard. You're going to meet NFPA 1710. It's going to be, requires 2 in and 2 out. So you say you go to a building fire, they'll have 2 that can go in, you have 2 backups on the outside. Right now, we're meeting that with the deputy and myself arriving on scene simultaneously with the first engine. But to have the ability to do that with guys that are actually on the truck
Right.
is pretty significant. So that would meet that safety standard, and at the same time, it's changing our service from a basic EMS service to a paramedic service. So it brings it up to that next level. So that's very favorable looking for the grant. You know, it's one more plus in that. Not to say, you know, not to say that we're guaranteed anything, because we're not.
Right.
But it, you know, it's definitely something that we're going to apply for. So that is actually how, you know, both of these shows. The page with the 2 yellow lines actually shows the difference with the grant money in there, and it shows our budget offsets are listed in there. It shows the beginning balance, it shows the revenue stream coming in. Each year, it shows the revenue stream increasing. And then it shows the budget offset, which is the number that's in parentheses. And you can see as we go out each year, with the grant, it's a smaller budget offset. Without the grant, it's a larger budget offset. But as you go out the few years, the revenue increases, and the budget offset, you'll actually hit a neutral point where the revenues coming in would pay for the staffing that's there. The other.
When does it cross over? Because at this point, it looks like we're still drawing down at about 100 grand a year out in FY '21.
So in 21 and 22, that's the time frame that they break even. And then also with the anticipation of us to start a community medicine plan, we're looking at other opportunities at having additional revenue streams. So that may blend into it. But that is not accounted for in this. That's an anticipation.
So this shows, though, the impact of the general fund is greater with the SAFER grant than without. Is that because of the timing of when things start?
So the other difference in these numbers, unlike the page, the budget page in the small packet, these numbers include benefits. All right? This includes all of the benefits.
Okay. That's good.
Unlike the other ones.
We
So
like
that's
that.
why these numbers are different.
Okay.
They will
No, but I'm
not
not talking about
match.
the difference between these 2 pages over
No,
here.
but just,
Yeah,
but
okay.
that affects the bottom line.
Okay.
In here, okay? So it's a larger number, unlike on the small budget page that you would see in the small packet. Because we wanted to include the benefits so that you could see the whole number.
So why is it different from one of these pages to the next? Because that's what I'm asking about.
Just because of with the grant, we were able to, you know, not use our funding right up front.
But
You could
And-
manipulate the general funds, the transfer, the offset there, that starts at 300,000. So what we were trying to do is just kind of even out the impact to the general fund. So if we wanted to make it the same, we could, we just have to modify
Oh,
that.
it's because of up there,
Yeah.
the transfer.
So
I'm
we're
just
just-
curious as to why you did that, because it makes it look like it costs the town more
It did,
with
yeah,
the SAFER grant than without
We
it.
can change that, that's.
I'm just,
I'll give you some new numbers.
okay.
Yeah, it just doesn't look right.
No, all
I
right.
get what you're saying. I was looking at it myself
I was like,
going.
now I see what you're saying, okay, but that's, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Allocations.
yeah,
We'll
You
just
make-
modify
yeah.
that.
yeah, we can tweak that up a little bit. The, the grant, if we're lucky enough to get the grant, it does 2 years. 2 years, 100%, including benefits for the salaries for those 6 individuals. Just, if we were lucky enough to obtain that.
And they pay that after the fact, as you go along? How does it get paid out?
Would be similar to how it was in the past. Well, in the past, it was done as,
Quarterly.
yeah, quarterly
But I think they do them
and
monthly
decreasing.
now.
but-
And so you're getting reimbursed as you're spending,
That's good.
so.
But this is coming like from the federal government or something, right? So it's not through cherry sheet stuff, this is,
No,
this is all a different thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Actual, somebody send you a check, more or
Wire.
less wire, but okay.
So that's kind of the overall, slightly different than you saw last time. This is pretty much what you'll see on Budget Saturday.
Yeah, but, yeah, I think, to Betsy's point, transfer to general fund budget offset should be consistent, so we don't have
Yeah, so you know what you're looking at.
apparent
Yeah.
weird
Nope, that makes sense to me.
Anomalies here.
Yeah.
yeah.
Plus it just,
But, well,
yeah.
and the other thing
Much for doing
is,
it that way, doesn't it?
we're using a larger portion of the ambulance receipts
Right.
to fund this program. Traditionally, we've been using those receipts to allowing those receipts to build up. So when you need an ambulance, we've got a big chunk of change to go against it. Is that sounds like that's a change in philosophy here.
The last
rather
ambulance
than
we bought, we
letting
did not
it-
use the receipts. We let them accumulate. So there's not been any consistency in whether they have funded capital or not. They have in sometimes, and other times they haven't. Like I said, the last ambulance was paid out of just regular capital.
But I thought part of the issue was that we aren't collecting as we should have been collecting from the ALS service. Therefore, we didn't have the income that we should have expected. And that was the reason that we didn't have the money built up for the ambulance.
And that will be one
That's
of
what I
the-
recall.
That will be one of the changes, is going to a private billing company that will be more efficient. The best we have been able to tell right now is that with pros, they're roughly in the 65 percentile, or 65 to 70-ish, whereas the billing company that we've been speaking with, they claim to be in the 92, 93% as far as collections. They take a smaller percentage. So yes, our revenues are anticipated to go up
We've had experience with this
drastically.
billing company. I can't think of their name now.
Coastal.
Coastal.
Yeah.
Prior to Pro, and they do have a very good collection.
And they're in the surrounding communities as well, and
Okay.
they've confirmed their numbers.
So with your fire chief hat on again, so besides all this, you're still looking for a new ladder truck? For $1 million plus next year, this coming year?
It's on the list, it's on the capital plan,
Right.
yes. It was due last year, we
Yeah.
put it off.
Yeah.
It will be 30 years old in 2018. So we have done, over the last 2 years, we've been doing all the legwork. The guys have traveled to a few trips across the country to go to different ladder manufacturers. We've really been doing our homework on this, especially with the changes in the community, the hotel, the 15 Great Road, things like that. So we're at roughly in the 1.1.5. Down from 1.2, which isn't much in the big picture. But yes, and so whether it's this year or it gets postponed again, but that is the ballpark number, yes.
You know, this isn't really relevant to our discussion, but Rich Crowley and I stopped by the fire department a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking to Tyson, I guess his name is, and he was showing us the new fire rescue truck.
The Winnebago?
Is it a Winnebago?
That's what it looks like to me, so.
But anyway, he was opining on a number of the attributes of the truck, and he said that actually, I believe it was the deputy, had gone out and kind of tested every part of the truck and found a weakness in the hinge, and they redesigned the hinge.
In the top.
Did, the
yeah.
Clancy.
The Clancy hinge.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
there is some
you know,
truth to
so
that.
These factory acceptance tests really pay off.
They do, they really do. And, when they go out and do these visits and go over all of the stuff, they find multiple things that aren't right and are corrected. Nobody wants to be stuck with a truck that has things that, hey, we didn't order it like that, and you know what? If you don't go out and do those, you're gonna be stuck with it. And you're stuck with it for the next 20 years. It's not, so it's very much worth it.
Like the espresso machine, you know. It's got everything in it except one.
No espresso machine. But
That's a neat truck.
It's a great truck. It's 2 trucks into one, and it's, we're able to be very efficient with that. It has everything that we need in it to be out on the highway, to accommodate the fact that we don't have a significant amount of support, especially during the day. So we can get have just about
one
everything
truck
that we need out
and
there.
people on it and-
Until mutual aid can arrive to assist us. Yeah, absolutely.
Any questions?
Questions? Concerns?
No drones in this budget?
No drones.
I got an email, I think, from Joe Plenter, you're gonna have a groundbreaking on Saturday?
Correct. Saturday morning, 8 AM. Let's see, it should be between like 9 and 15 degrees.
Yeah,
something like
exactly.
that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It'll be short.
Maybe snowing.
You can shovel snow or dirt, take your pick. But yeah, it should be hopefully a brief groundbreaking ceremony on Saturday morning.
It could be in the front, in the back, where you can actually do it. I mean,
It'll be out back.
in the back, huh?
It'll be out back, yeah.
Refreshments or no?
Yes, there will be coffee and snacks.
A raising party for the old police station, or is that already down? No, it's still.
That's not down yet.
They have a party for that one, huh?
Could be down, hopefully those 2 buildings will be down by the end of next week. So,
Good,
yeah.
very good.
All right.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you for
Appreciate
everything.
it.
I know it's a lot of
Thank you.
extra work for you managing that building as well as the
all good.
ALS project and everything else. You got a lot going on, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah, Bonnie, you want to just give us sort of an update on if you have anything on this year, 2017, if anything?
So we had the tax classification hearing, which is like our big event for the year. The hearing went very well. We started this year with the idea that maybe we could do more than just one session, the hearing night with the information and the selectmen having to make their decision right then and there. So we didn't have a whole lot of time because you can't really start the tax classification hearing materials until after town meeting has commenced, because you have to record all those votes. So having a town meeting in November and then the hearing, right in December, it doesn't leave much of a window, but for next year, I think we're going to try and spread that out a little bit, maybe do an October town meeting if that's possible, which would allow like a 2-week window. We could do a presentation to the selectmen at one of their meetings, and then they could vote the information at the following meeting. Basically, it just gets the information about the tax rate out earlier. But anyway, we did manage to have a meeting with them on the Thursday before their formal hearing, so that they did get some of the information out and they were able to absorb it. I did give you a copy of the slideshow that we did. And there's just, I won't walk you through the whole thing, but there's a couple of items that I did want to highlight. The first is on this first page, the levy breakdown. So for fiscal 17, you can see the 2.5 allowed growth increase was $764,000. Our new growth increase was 1.9, almost $2 million. We had estimated $1.4 million, and we had pushed that estimate up, through the budget process. Some people have said, well, how come, why is it $500,000 off? We make our estimates based on what we get for permit information. So when somebody builds a potpourri building, and they say it's a $20 million building, and then it's done and it's a $30 million building, that affects new growth. The houses that were built at 15 Great Road, the construction estimates were $400,000, and then they sell for $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. That all affects new growth. We've got a tremendous amount of building going on right now. We did over this past year, obviously, but that's kind of why your estimates can kind of be different than your actuals. It's not a bad problem to have, but definitely it was a big number, and we weren't sure what DOR was going to do when we put it out there. It raised all sorts of flags with them because it was higher than any 3-year average they could come up with. So they, they really ran through what made up our new growth and data tested it. And it stuck. So, we did a good job. The debt exclusions, it's $1.5 million here. What we did this year, the debt exclusion actual debt was $1,829,000, but because new growth was so strong and we had already had our budget set, what we decided to do was take a piece of that new growth and apply it towards the excluded debt. So that directly reduces the tax rate. And on a single rate, it reduced it by 17 cents. So instead of, I think our single rate was 2040, it would have been 2057 if we hadn't done this. So by applying it this way, it's a great relief to the taxpayers. It's about $60, $70 a year, depending on the value, the average value of your house. What we wanted to do is, in reducing it by that particular amount, like why did we take 300,000? We wanted to pick a sustainable amount going forward. We didn't want to lower the rate this year and then have it go way up next year and have people go, what happened? So we looked at what we had put into the debt exclusion stabilization fund, that $532,000 from town meeting, and figured out, how long can we stretch this out with an amount from this new growth and make it flat, make it sustainable. So on the next page, this is the important slide, I think. This shows how we can stabilize the debt level till fiscal 2021 with what we currently have on deposit. Now, if we add more to the debt exclusion stabilization fund, we can lower it again. Maybe we can go out, to 2023 and lower it to that level. But we can say with all certainty right now that with what we have in hand, we can stabilize the excluded debt at that $1.5 million level rather than, the amounts that you see in the orange above it
But
each year.
that's not just the 532. That's the 532 plus the 298.
The 298 was this year, okay?
Yeah.
It's just this year only. Came from new growth.
Right.
So for next year, that's in the levy, it's either in the capital plan, like we haven't decided that, that's a policy decision, but with the 532, that's aside in the debt exclusion stabilization fund, we can do 19, 20, and 21,
Okay.
okay? And maybe more. Like I said, if we can put more money in there, we can lower it down again, but
So, explain to me again why we did this and actually lowering people's tax rates as opposed to just applying this to all these other things we're buying at the moment.
Either applying it to what we're buying, or we drained the capital
Exactly.
stabilization fund.
Exactly. We know we have to buy a fire truck. We're going to be probably going to be coming to town meeting in May saying we need debt exclusions, overrides. So why, I don't understand.
you have to have a town meeting article to appropriate the money. So you can't spend that unless you have a town meeting before December 31st to say that $500,000 gets spent on something else. The only thing you can do when a situation like this comes up, and it's fairly common, you want to be conservative in your estimates, so there's usually an amount that comes in a little bit above what you estimated. You can lower your receipts, and that money goes to free cash. So you're raising it and it goes to free cash. Or you leave it and it's excess levy capacity. If you leave it in its excess levy capacity, then another board could fully appropriate it and you could have a spike. So you could, effectively create a spike. Doing this stabilizes the excluded debt. It's still raised, it's still part of the levy, but it provides relief on the excluded debt piece of your tax bill rather than the non-excluded piece. Again, without a town meeting, you can't spend that money. And after the tax rate is set, you can't appropriate it. Even if I know it's still available, like in March, you can't. Once you set your tax rate, there are no more appropriations. So that's why. And in looking at it, one of the discussions was, well, do you adjust your receipts and raise it and let it go to free cash? It would have, kept the tax rate higher. We have good fiscal policies in place to generate free cash. We don't have a problem generating, the money that we need to fund our capital plan. So if I were concerned about that, we probably would have recommended that be the course.
And I don't suppose any politicians in town will say, now we've lowered your taxes, right, in addition to buying all these things as well?
Yeah.
Of course.
Let's get down to the real stuff here, huh?
Tax increase is
right, better than
$400
free.
instead of
That's right.
$417.
But it is, it is within the fiscal policies. It did, we did raise the full amount of the levy that's authorized. We just provided relief on the excluded debt and tried to make it sustainable. So those are the important takeaways from fiscal 2017. For fiscal 2018, that $587,000, that was an unexpected amount for new growth and was not programmed into the operating budget. It's my recommendation that that money be programmed to capital.
Yes.
Because we have the alumni fields debt, we're paying that off over 8 years. That's about, it's 500,000 plus annually for 8 years, and that was gonna directly impact the capital spending. So that's my recommendation. That's, again, those are policy decisions that you and the selectmen will have to hash out, but,
Well, you won't get any argument here.
yeah.
No, but we need to make sure we have the discussions up front, because what seems to happen a lot of times is the decisions are made and things are going forward, like this is the assumption before we even hear the discussion. We're not even part of the discussion. So that's my concern, is that these things happen, and we're not part of the discussion. The selectmen somehow decide it somewhere, all of a sudden it's there, and then it's too late to have the discussion. So I don't know how we have to make that happen, but.
We can put it on one of the topics for the next joint meeting.
Well, I've seen a lot of that migration recently of things that used to come to this board and we would make recommendations and then the selectmen would either accept our recommendation or have their own and pass it, which is the way it's supposed to be. Of late, the last 2 or 3 years, things like you just mentioned, I find all of a sudden, there it is, they made the decision, nobody talked to us about it. There's reasons for that, none of which are good. But I think they need to be aware that we're aware of it and not particularly happy about it. It puts the finance director in a hole, because they'll make a decision and say, you do this, and she has to do that, whether we've been talked to or not.
Right.
So it really comes down to us having a discussion with the selectmen about who does what to whom and when.
Yep.
I don't want to see this board cut out of the loop. You don't have to take our recommendation, but since we are a town board, and other than the selectmen, the next more important board in town, at least give us an opportunity to give you a recommendation, and we'll give you all our reasons for it.
I think the last time we gave them a recommendation was at the joint meeting, and we were all sitting in a couple of chairs, just whispering among ourselves, so we didn't really have much time to deliberate.
Well, the thing that comes to my mind was, I think it was in August, we voted unanimously that Alumni Field should go as a debt exclusion override.
Right.
And if they disagree with it was one thing, but there was no discussion. It was just totally ignored, and they just went forward with the way they wanted to. And that was wrong, from my standpoint. We ought to at least have the discussion. But, well,
That's my recommendation.
yep.
Okay. For 2018, I just have 2 things to go over quickly with you. I did a draft schedule for the January 7th budget meeting. So take a look at that. If you have any comments on it or thoughts, you can just let me know. You can either email me or if you get anything that you stands glaringly out now, we can make some changes. I think I've got everybody on there. I've got CPC. I allowed for a little bit more time with highway and cemetery and fire than some of the other departments.
I'm here.
Highway and cemetery have some new staff people. The new superintendent, or not superintendent, the
Director of Public Works.
Yes, Director of Public Works. Cemetery has a new cemetery commissioner, or superintendent, that's a superintendent, cemetery superintendent. And fire, obviously, he's got a lot of things to discuss with ALS, but some of the others are pretty short.
Who's met the Director of Public Works? Have you met him? No. Anybody? No?
He just
started?
got cleared. He's not started yet.
Oh, he's not
just
started
got
yet, oh, okay.
So
Doesn't
he'll be
start
ready.
till the 9th, right?
Yeah, but he'll probably come to
I
this.
see historical only gets 15 minutes.
They need 5, I think, usually.
When
For their- when they have
see,
their
I had them down
$100
for
budget or
5.
something?
I had them down for 5, and every year they go 15. Every year they go 15 minutes. So I was like, forget it, I'm just putting him in for 15.
And I think last year they asked for $500.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But they like to tell you what's going on.
They do.
and,
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
so
No, that's right,
It's
exactly.
going to be 15 minutes at least.
That's good.
I did put water down,
Yeah.
PMBC and public buildings.
Yeah, Scott did say that he would show up this year.
Okay.
Very good.
All right, so I'll kind of keep this, and if I don't hear any comments back or concerns, then I'll just send it out to everybody. And
While we're on this topic, in your discussions with any of the departments, anything pop up of any real note? And I know, the paramedics is a big thing for the fire.
In terms of the mission budgets, I know the planning board would love to have another half person to help with all the growth that they have going up there, so that's what I heard.
Alan, any of yours?
Big change, obviously, is happening for the finance director. She's getting out of the business of some of the odds and sods of stuff around, so that makes a change in her department, things that she won't be
And
responsible
where are we
for.
on that? We actually interviewing
where
or?
it's, the applications are being accepted now through January 11th. We wanted to get through the holidays, and we're getting a lot of activity.
Okay,
So.
good.
And with very fine coming on board, or Pepsi, I guess.
Yeah.
Scott was talking about the increased water demand. Pepsi had approached him, or he approached Pepsi actually, just prior to them closing their deal, and wanted to make sure that he had the capacity to supply their needs. So he did assure them that he had the capacity, but he's moving forward with the new well. So that's sooner than later.
Right. So that'll be a big ticket item as soon as the state allows them to go forward, probably.
Right. Yeah, he was up there testing it, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I believe Elder and Human Services will have some requests too.
Yeah, in talking with Pam on, they're looking for an outreach person. They're pretty well inundated now, and she was going to be putting together some numbers. I don't know whether she's done that yet or not.
Yeah, I think it just came.
She mentioned that, and Chief King is still advocating for his 19th officer, which we supported last year and the selectmen didn't, so those are the only things that came up in my discussions with my people, but other than that, things seem pretty well in line with the expectations. So.
One of the things that came up on the LCTV's budget, we pay our own way. And what popped up this year on doing the budget for FY18 is the big increase in fringe benefits. And I assume that that's going to be pretty much across the board.
See you.
What?
To the point where it's almost 43.5%
Fringes?
of
What?
the salary.
OPEB. The actuarial study that we had done broke out OPEB a little bit more than they did in previous versions. So now I have OPEB costs for Group 4 employees, which is much higher than, Group
Yeah.
1. It's broken out by age, So as if your employees are older, the OPEB costs are more. So in doing the actuals for that department, I was able to take, here's the actual health insurance plan, here's the OPEB cost based on that age group, and it came out to 43% of.
So, interesting. So what you're saying then is that OPEB number would vary based on your actual department?
Yep.
And the people you have there?
If you have a young group and they're not group 4, it's cheap.
I don't know,
But if you've
group
got-
4 is versus
Group
group
4
1.
is public safety.
Oh,
So
I see, okay. got it.
public
I get it.
safety
That's
is
okay, I get it.
a lot more
Yeah,
than,
yeah, okay.
Group 1, which is office.
So anyway,
I'm just-
my point being, when we talk about adding new
Yep.
employees, that salary line ain't what it costs.
Right.
Well,
And and everybody knows that,
Right.
except that it's more costly now than it was last year or the year before that.
The good thing is, with the aggressive way that we're handling OPEB now, we are getting close to reaching the ARC. We might reach that annual required contribution number in a few years if we continue, our plan, the way that we're doing it, which would help.
I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about this, actually charging the actual cost based on, and to some extent I say, yeah, I can see that, but there's a part of me that says, I'm thinking about, so I'm hiring somebody, I'm gonna go for the young person instead, and that's illegal, right? Because the costs are high, I just doesn't seem to me that we should be doing that on a department basis, right?
On that basis.
On that
yeah.
basis,
Yeah.
right.
But I mean,
Well, that's not our issue. Our issue is, the department guy doesn't make a decision until we recommend and the Board of Selectmen decides, yeah, we're gonna hire somebody. So once that decision's made, the department guy doesn't care how much it costs him.
Because it doesn't count in his budget anyway, right?
Yeah.
It shows, could you keep those all together? Okay, so it's okay then. Well, I mean, yeah.
But we do fund that into the OPEB line. We adjust the appropriations for
For that department.
new staff that comes on every year. That's part of my
Well, we
annual
want
OPEB
it.
calculation. We
We
figure
should-
out, who did we hire? What groups were they in?
Well,
And then,
we should do that, for
Yeah.
sure. Like I said, I would just be a little concerned if that were impacting somebody's individual budget, and somehow if they hire this person versus that person based on their age, their
No.
cost, or they have more money to spend someplace else, that would not
Doesn't
be.
matter.
Well, it only
Okay.
matters for people like
Okay, all
Mike.
right, then
they
that's
don't
good. That's the
even
way we
get
had it
into
set up.
it. The only reason that he gets it is
Yeah.
because he's got to figure out a cost to charge Boxborough
Okay.
for their services.
Okay.
And part of that cost is
Okay.
OPEB.
All right.
And I got to-
But the departments don't see
And
that.
I can't raise taxes, so I have to make sure that my expected revenue is always greater than what my budget's gonna
Yeah.
be.
Yep,
And that will affect the fire department too. So,
Yeah, their OPEB's in there.
Yeah.
That's why it was so high.
but for most departments, they never see that anyway.
all right.
so one thing interesting came, from my perspective, came out of our meeting with the library. Tom and I met with the library, with Sam. And we got talking about the grant application. Now, it was always my perception, I don't know where I got it, but my perception that the grant application listed renovation, build new in the same location, or build new in another location. Well, that's not the way it is. The grant application is only for one of those options. And of course, the option is to build new
somewhere else,
right down the hill here. So, I've been part of this library team for a while. And I was under a very, maybe I just didn't listen correctly.
Well,
Well, because they were required to look at those other things, though.
They
They
were.
had to look at the other ones
Yeah.
before they did that.
Yeah.
That was part of it, but you're right.
well, I was under the same impression you were. I knew they were required to look at it,
Yeah.
and I thought that they were required to say what the other alternatives were and why they didn't take them.
So they didn't even have to do that.
Apparently not. Apparently they just submitted a grant application for
For the
the
preferred.
preferred,
Pretty easy to stack that deck, wouldn't it? If you wanted to. I'm not saying that they did here, but it seems like kind of a
But anyway,
funky
I thought that
process.
was interesting. It was something that I learned from that meeting, and I thought I'd impart it.
Yeah.
All right, I will get that out. And the only other thing, I'm going to do a memo that goes with this, but I wanted to give you just a brief little summary of the salary changes that we're anticipating on the school budget side. So if you can look at this page here, just like that.
Yep.
It's two-sided. Basically, we made some assumptions on the LEA changes. You can see at the bottom part of the sheet. You can see what the current budget is.
Which side are you on first, Bonnie? Just so I make sure we're looking at the same thing.
That one. With this item down here at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay? So you can see in the 17 budget is that 9.29 million, with the FTEs at 127.7. So we have the steps that we know that are in the contract, but we have a 0% COLA because the contract expires at the end of this year. Lane changes in the current year, in this fiscal year, new staff in this current year, retired staff. So just kind of walking you through the salary changes in 17. There was a small error in the spreadsheet that Steve fixed. So the subtotal, rolling this over would be 9.5, almost 9.6 million. And then there's just an assumption in there for a COLA. So again, not negotiated, it's got to go through the process. But just to show you where we're getting like this particular 9.7 number for the LEA. And then up above, you can see, and teachers, see that 9.765 number? So we're looking at the 17 budget versus the 18 budget, okay? So in just kind of rolling that over, we're looking at about 568,000 in increases based on the staffing that's there right now.
What's the percentage?
4.11.
Oh, I'm looking right at it. Oh, there it is, sorry.
In addition to that, it was referenced that there might be some changes in stipends coming through that would increase this also. So I just wanted to know that that's kind of the salary estimates that we're looking at for starting.
Has the school department seen this and agree with it?
No, well, the staff has agreed with the spreadsheet, so yes, based on these numbers and this data as presented, yes,
Okay.
the numbers
The
match.
staff has, but the school committee hasn't.
The school committee has not looked at it. So you can see that the staffing level was estimated at, 127.7 for this year. It's actually going to be 131.9 based on the changes that have, new hires and whatever that have come through. So we'll kind of just want to keep an eye on these numbers as we go into fiscal 18. In addition, in these calculations, there are some positions that are not filled this year, but are being held to be filled. So they're vacant right now, but they don't want to, say that vacancy can go away. If they're holding the position, they want to fill it at some point, and so there's some of that built
So
into it.
they're also holding the money for those positions.
I was just gonna say, what are we spending the money on?
Okay.
So that's the
Oh, plus we had enough money in the budget to hire 4 people that weren't budgeted for,
Oh, okay.
right? Okay.
I'm just,
And when, I know they're beginning to talk about negotiations, when is their contract up?
it's at the end of this fiscal year, or their cycle, which I think is August. I think theirs ends
The
of.
end of FY '17 plus 2 months.
Right.
Okay, so FY '18, we'll see the impact of whatever their new contract is.
Correct.
And you're assuming 2%?
Well, that's what, yeah.
That's what's plugged in there?
just as a-
for a worksheet, okay.
So they are just starting that process. The LEA has asked me for some information, the teachers union has asked me for some financial data, which I will put together for them. I believe that Keith has also reached out to Kelly Clenchy to say, just to keep me into the loop, because he's one of the members of that bargaining team.
Yeah.
So as we get more info and we start to negotiate, we'll keep people updated and posted. But I just wanted to show you that. So that number, plus a little bit more, I think is held right now as a placeholder in the school's budget for fiscal 18. I don't know what the impact of special ed costs are in this fiscal year yet. So but I wanted to share with you that for salaries.
Thank you.
Bonnie, just a question on the meeting in January.
Yes.
Maybe I don't see it, but I don't see where it's being held.
Oh, the police station.
Oh, here it is, Littleton Police Department.
Yep.
Okay.
I've already booked the room, so.
Okay.
And I put myself at the end.
you
That
can-
way,
You can sleep in.
if there's a gap, I can jump in somewhere else.
No, we should have those meals, we can do that.
Great. Okay, thank you.
And the plan is to have the books ready, like a week ahead of time?
The plan is to have the books ready for Christmas.
Okay.
They will be my gifts to you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
In my stocking, huh?
There you go, okay.
That means next week, Bonnie, you realize that.
Yeah, next week, yep.
Pick up at the police department as usual?
Yeah, usually, okay. Member updates, I think we already did some. If anybody has anything else you want to jump in now? Okay, no? We have two sets of minutes, one for October 18th. Marilyn sent out, and I sent a couple of small corrections on, but nothing much. Any comments or discussions, or? No.
Move to accept?
Motion to accept. Have a motion?
Move
I
to
did.
accept.
Thought I did, but okay.
I have a motion and...
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Great. And November 16th, which is town meeting, and we can't vote those because Steve wasn't there, right? You
I
weren't
was
there?
not, no.
So we don't have
We
a
have a
quorum
quorum.
to vote those. So we'll have to do that then at the next meeting, if you can put a note on that. Marilyn, so do that. Great. All righty.
Move to adjourn?
Favorite
Second.
motion of the evening. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Flip the switch.
Yep.